Today we're going to focus on two new skills to add to your tool belt. The first one is we're going to talk about data-driven decision making, and the second one is actually using the crowd to help you evaluate and build your prototypes along the way. I'm going to assume that all of you have selected a concept. And so over the first lecture series, we talked about how you select a concept. So I'm going to give you some kind of an uptick in terms of how you should think about how you selected your concept and where you are in the stage. Because the point we're at right now, the stuff we're talking about, isn't for everyone. Not everyone should be doing some of the data-driven decision making. Obviously, yes, you want to be always trying to use data to make decisions, but it's important to not jump to surveying people to find out what the best idea is. And we'll talk a little bit later about if Henry Ford had surveyed his customers what they wanted, I don't think we would end up with the Model T. So we're going to talk a little bit about what the scientific method is and why it actually applies to startups. It's actually really important to think that startups are not art, they're science, and that's part of the reason what we'll be talking about today. So we'll talk about the two new tests or two new tools to add to your belt, and then we're going to talk about a specific idea that I spent some time with last spring to give you some examples of how actually to deploy this. At the end, I'll ask for a volunteer. If someone's interested in actually kind of running through some of this with your current concept, be thinking about it. No pressure, but if someone's interested in kind of getting some feedback from the crowd, we're happy to have it, and then we'll talk about what's next. So let's get going after it. So to get everyone up to speed of kind of where we've been, what we talked about last class is that we're actually starting from a place of inspiration. You want to start a company, maybe you've got an area you're interested in, but you're starting at the point of inspiration. And really the next part in that process is actually generating your idea and validating what that idea is. So it's all about starting with a broader inspiration and starting to hone in on what that idea is. Now again, we're not necessarily saying this is the startup, but we're starting to wean down in terms of what we actually want to work on. And that's where customer discovery comes in next. Once you've found something that you're worth spending some time on and you want to go after it, turns out you're not right yet. You ultimately need to talk to customers to see if it's right. So today we're going to say we're at the point where you all have talked to a number of customers and you feel like there's a there there. How do you know there's a there there? You just know. It's like how do you know when you're ready to start driving a car? You're 16 or you just know. So this is the stage where I'm going to assume all of you are at right now. And again, not all of you will be there, but for the purpose of this lecture, this is the point where you should start to actually apply some of these data-driven tools to actually move towards the process of developing your first MVP. And that's why we're going to use these processes. So the first one, you settle on that initial concept. Again, it's probably not the final concept. I'm willing to wager a lot of money it's not. But you've settled on something. Second thing is you probably talked to around 40 to 60 customers. Now it seems like a lot, but ultimately it's important to talk to that many customers because it'll help you have a validation that you're onto something important. The third one, and this is an important one, you can clearly state the problem you're solving. Now, it seems like it's an obvious one, like, yeah, of course, I'm trying to build Facebook for dogs. Well, that's not the problem. That's a product. Think about what the problem is. So if you're actually working on Facebook for dogs, which is a real thing, it's called Dogbook, in all honesty, it's actually not solving something for dogs, it's solving something for their owners. And so their owners can connect for various reasons. Like, think about the problem that you're solving, like, pet owners want to connect with each other and they do it by pretending their dogs need a Facebook page. So that's clearly stating the problem, and as you're interviewing, you'll be able to clearly state that. The fourth thing that's important is you spent a little bit of time researching, and usually there's someone who's already playing in this space. If you're tackling an interesting problem, you're not the only one playing in this space. But spend a minute at a time researching the competitors, and you'll find they don't quite do it for you. They're missing something or something else isn't there. So again, to go back to this Facebook for Dogs examples, there is a company called Dogbook. Maybe you believe that there's something better out there. They're missing the fact that there's no cats involved, or there's no, I don't even know this analogy. But the fifth thing is you've got a decent theory about what the solution is. Again, you don't necessarily have the final theory, but you've got a theory, and that's important. And then finally, you've got kind of some general feedback that someone might pay for this. So that's the general spot that I want you to be at, and imagine yourself there. Now, at this point, one of the tools that we use that we talked about last time is the business model canvas. This is a document that I really recommend that you do, and the reason it's important is that actually it's one simple place to talk about what your business does. And it's a living, breathing document. This is a real-life example of a business model canvas that we worked on for a project in the spring that we'll talk about here later today. But the really nice part about it is you can clearly see the entire business model in one place. And so I encourage every one of you, as you're developing that concept and trying to get to the place to describe your business, you use a concept like this. So that's it. That's where you are. Does that mean you have a startup? Does that mean you should just start running? Well, no. Ultimately, this is just the first step in the process. But again, it's important to understand you're at that point where you can now start to think about what next.